Okay, hey everyone. Welcome to another episode of That's All Funny. I have a great guest today. My interview guest today is the shepherd for the Anomaly Sheep. You can find him in, at Anomaly Sheep. Riley, how you
Yeah,
doing, Riley?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. And you know, uh, I said to him, I don't know. Nowadays with misgender and all that, I don't get straight to the point. It's straight. I say straight. You're. I don't know how you feel about the pronouns thing because I know you're technically trans person. Is that
Yeah, I am transsexual. I've been transitioning for several years now. You know, did the whole treatment and everything, got the therapy before all this nonsense. And for me personally, I don't care what pronouns people use, especially online. You're not like it's online, but in person, most times people just use he, him because that's what they see. So, but family calls me she, her, if it's my grandparents or something like that. And, cultural differences, but I'm not a pronoun Nazi.
and I was saying that because you know first look, just going off of like what I see, I would say, oh, he, him. It's a dude. Like you look like a dude, right? Just
Yeah.
going on off of just descriptions. Um, and yeah, you explained it. It doesn't upset you, like if
No.
someone were to, especially on the internet or just out in public,
I
upset
mean, on
that.
the internet, like you just said, you wouldn't be able to tell, right? And so
Yeah,
I outed myself out there to speak on the trans madness, this gender cult ideology. But people say, "Oh, we can always tell," and I'm like, if I didn't come out, you probably wouldn't be able to tell. And tell that to everybody who's interacting with me out here. They can't tell. You said it yourself. Initially I see a guy, so
hmm
it's the same thing. So online people just talk, and it's that's why I'm very peaceful with everybody online, because it's whatever.
yeah. No, I know. Like I'd work in a grocery store, and I'd come out maybe looking down at the ground, look up and see like a nice like butt in tights, and then I get closer and it ends up being like a dude. And I'm like, oh man, like, but I don't throw a huss or a fuss like, oh man, I just checked out a dude, even though
I mean,
I'm.
it happens to the best of us. I mean, it happened to me when I was 16. So it just happens, but that's where I try to tell people, if you're going to transition, you need to have a sense of maturity, because not everyone's going to understand you. Not everyone's going to agree with you. And, it's a lifelong decision that affects everything in your life. And that's where I think a lot of young adults and this gender cult is like, no, we're going to force our way. We're going to bend the rules and break the rules and create new rules and have people abide by our rules. And that's just not how it works. If I assimilate in society. I don't look like this and then wear a dress and wear makeup and grow my facial hair. I don't do that. I meet the societal standards, societal norms, because that's what transitioning really is. But and I think people, you know, and I speak out against like the gender criticals, the turfs. I'm not on anyone's side. I just understand both sides. When they're like, "Oh, you're just cosplaying. You're just wearing clothes that are." I'm like, I've dressed this way. The only difference is I just have facial hair, fat distribution's a little different, voice is different, but I've been the same. So they just throw insults, and it's just childish things online. But that's where you have to be mature, and you have to be ready for people to disagree with you, especially when it's a life altering decision in all aspects.
Yeah, and like you said, it's more it's like you're simulating. You can't create your own reality and then expect everyone else to follow it or demand people to follow it. You have
Right.
to put yourself in the majority of whatever reality you're in.
Right. And reality, and I like to say this. So people are like, they say you're a female, that's just going by a male experience, or simulating a male experience, and I think that's fine, that's cool, because I can't understand what you went through. I can't understand your puberty. I can't understand what particular health problems you have, because we're not the same. But what is the same is we have parallel experiences in society, how society treats us, how society talks to us, how society interacts with us, and even how I think. And I felt like I was going crazy for a long time. I'm like, there's no way guys are treated like this, or no one pays attention, or you try to make a relationship with a guy, have him as a friend, and it's just a shallow conversation. Or there's just something there that's just missing when, prior to my transition, being friends with girls, there's more of an emotional bond. There's something there. You can talk about anything, but it's very different. And so that led me down to reading books on masculinity, reading books on what men go through, understanding men. And so I wasn't crazy, and I think that's something that's not understood by people. Like, the vast majority is not going to understand us. Only transsexuals understand what transsexuals are going through and the experiences. And that's where I have a problem with this gender cult, saying you don't need medicine, it's not a medical condition, you don't need dysphoria. The list goes on, where they're actually just trying to appropriate an anomaly, right? And then just make it a norm. You
Hmm.
can't make an anomaly a norm. You can't do that, or else it's going to cause like a ripple effect of other mental health conditions. So
No, definitely. And I know you were talking about you grew up. We're here around in Texas, pretty red state, religious. I'm sure you had kind of the same upbringing I kind of had, where it was like,
I lived all over. So
oh, okay,
I've been a nomad most of my
oh,
life.
okay.
Like every 3 or 4 years I moved. So that's military, job opportunities that my mom had growing up. But currently I do reside in Texas, and it's just, no one cares. Don't Your business, you don't know who you're messing with. Everybody's got a gun around here, so it's better to be polite and kind and just go your own way here in Texas. Whereas California, it's drastically different,
Hmm.
way different. So
And you did you grow up pretty religious, like as
not
far as an
religious
upbringing?
in the sense where we went to church every Sunday, but my mother, she did have that background. It was the '80s, right? Very
Hmm.
Christian nationalist type of background. Traditional Hispanic family. She's obviously my mother, the youngest daughter of 8, right? So, you know, if people don't know, when you're the youngest and then you're a female in a Hispanic family, you really don't have any talking power. You really don't have say. It's very
Hmm.
traditional. And my mom was kind of like that for a while. And then I came out when I was like 14. And that was kind of like a journey between me and my mom. So, but now she's very supportive. And I have an interview with her on why she was so scared. And it was how gays and lesbians were treated back in the '80s. She said they got beat up, and
Hmm.
killed just for being
Hmm.
gay. So, she was worried how the world was going to treat me. But we weren't going, we didn't predict this madness, 17 years later, and it's just crazy now.
No, absolutely. And I know you were saying earlier about, you felt a certain way, you kind of looked into it as far as researching, like, oh, why do I feel this way and all that. Did you feel any pushback, not just from your family, but like your inner self? Like, is this a should I feel this way? Like, am I like going crazy, like feeling, not myself inside of my own body or
For a
any.
long time, I mean, I knew at a young age, and I think there's a certain kind of language that transsexuals use, because you see the gender cult say, I feel. But if you listen to transsexuals, they'll say, I knew, I know. just like you know something. I no one can explain that you just know, right? You just know, and there's no explanation. I didn't have the language for it growing up. I didn't have access to social media. I didn't have my first cell phone until I bought my first cell phone, right? And
Mhm.
that's a weird thing because growing up, the iPhone started coming out in when I was in high school. All my friends started having cell phones, so it was something normal, but it was something I never had. My social media was very limited. And when we were on it, our parents would do random checks to make sure we weren't doing anything, or they would check it randomly throughout the week while we were at school.
Mhm.
So there wasn't really, any way to find out what I was going through for a long time. And then when I found out, it was quite upsetting because 12, 14 years ago when I found out, I think I was like 17, 18. um, I finally had my phone and I was looking up these symptoms and I was looking everything up, trying to figure all this out because I finally had the freedom to actually research, without feeling some sort of shame or scrutiny. If my parents brought it up, I'm sure you've experienced that where you might hide something because you feel shameful, and it's
Mhm.
nothing bad. It's just something that maybe others don't understand, and
Yeah.
that's what kind of happened. So I got emotional because I was already struggling. Um, in a time where there was still homophobia, in a time where in high school and middle school, I was beat up for and or targeted for bullying for being gay, and even parts of the military. So, it was just a time where it's like, okay, I was cool with I'm cool with being a homosexual, right? I love women. That's never going to change. But being transsexual, that just added on top of something that I was already accepting. So I waited 5 years. I joined the military after I found out. I was like, okay, maybe I can go into the military, see if I can outgrow it, wait it out, do research, and seek mental health therapy in the meantime, which a lot of people won't do. I mean, you're willing to sign away your life for 4 years, 5 years after you find out you have gender dysphoria. People nowadays say, I feel like a boy or a girl last week, and then they go to wherever the heck and get their medications basically for free, or they
Yeah.
pay $20. Whereas I waited 5 full years, did the therapy, try to get rid of it, try to outgrow it, and it just never went away. It just never went away. So at 24, I started my testosterone therapy, and I still waited around a year to start, around almost a year. So it was a long time coming.
No, and I felt, and I don't want to say I'm a part of that community too, because I'm not sure how it is, because there's so many like labels now, right? There's so many LBGTQ plus 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 plus. Because I know me growing up, I, I'm attracted to women,
Hmm.
but I never felt like I wanted to have sex with them. Like I wanted to do everything else except like any sort of, I don't know what you call it, penetration. I don't know what like is the term for it, but so when I looked up like why do I feel this way? Why am I when I'm with a woman and they want to like have sex? I'm like, nah, I don't want to. And I found the term asexual,
Hmm.
and I'm like, is this me? Do I feel accept? I feel like I'm not so crazy now. I looked it up, but that goes to like my point of like there's so many like labels and slurs or terms that like classify under, where do you think like I don't know, like does that make it better or just make it
I think
worse?
to an extent, right? Language is ever evolving. We create new definitions, we create new terms as the culture is changing or to capture a phenomenon in society. And that's understandable, but I think they push it to like the nth degree, right? Like a sexual's been around. There's people who have just never had that kind of, vibe when it came to wanting to be physically intimate with somebody, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just because you're somebody who's like that doesn't mean that those types of people never existed before. It's just something that exists and something we have a better understanding on. But like when I hear cis het people, like we
Mm-hmm.
have trans in front of our, trans man, trans woman, because you're a man and my mom's a woman, right? You're not a trans man, she's not a trans woman. So we're creating these words to keep putting people further into boxes that they don't even need to be in the first place. It's just for the
Mm-hmm.
sake of whatever comfort for the individual calling it. But I mean, like going back to the question, it's gone to extremes. I think we can slow down a little bit, and we don't need to alter definitions because it's happening so quickly. I think I made a video on GLAD changing what it means to be a homosexual. They call it homogender or gynophilic or androphilic, which means gynophilic. You have attraction solely to women, to females, androphilic males, so on and so forth. Homogender, same gender attraction. So like we would be homogender if we were the example, but homosexual is now a slur. So they went from erasing transsexuals and appropriating us to going for women to now going to the homosexuals. And then I believe like men are the next. I have gay men message me often, and they'll talk about how trans men like myself claim that they're gay men, and it's regular heterosexual sex, P and V type sex, and it's like that's not gay. That's not gay at all.
Uh-huh.
And it really bothers them. It really makes them upset because it's like, we're supportive, but you guys are calling us transphobic. You guys are calling us homophobic. You guys are calling us all these names. Not you guys, but like the trans cult.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really makes them upset. So, I wasn't expecting this madness after being away for like 4 or 5 years from the whole atmosphere of the gender wars, I guess is what you can say. It's just
Mm.
strange now.
No, it's insane. And I know, like, in quick story, real quick, like, I want to know there's terms like where you're attracted to wisdom. It doesn't matter what gender you're attracted to their intelligence, or
Like demisexual or something like that.
yeah, where you're attracted to their looks or something. Because I know, like me, I'm not gay, right? I'm a
Mhm.
straight man. Although I would say I'm asexual because I just don't have sex with whatever. It's more foreplay, right? But that's I don't know if that's just a kink or that's
That's just your thing, and
my
there's no
turn.
judgment in that.
Yeah, but I remember a guy that like he was cute and I got attracted to him because of what he was into and he was kind of feminine but he was still straight.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Oh, am I gay now? Because I liked one dude." And I mean, it didn't work out, but I was like, "Okay, so what label do I do here?" Like, I just
I mean, like we can, and there's people who are very rigid traditionalist, just very right wing in terms of what they say. But human sexuality has always been experimental throughout history. If you just read it, the Greeks and the Romans, they were, the upper classes were known to participate in homosexuality often. And it's like we can acknowledge that, as humans, we have these kinds of experiences. It's completely natural, it's completely normal. But to just dismiss them and say like this is not natural, this is not right, it's against God, it's against this, it's against that. Well, I don't mean any offense on anyone's religion, but some religions are a little younger than other things that existed before it. So and we can't just, and I think that's where we see these things kind of come out, um, like Christian nationalism was really big, the satanic panic of the 80s, right? So we had this really right wing traditionalist culture for a long time. And so that was where the pendulum was. And now, because the parents, the children of the parents of those times, and people that are older, they're finally out and they're free, and they can say these things because the Christian religion and other religions are kind of, going down a little bit. Now we have the pendulum coming back, where it's like free love and free this, and the slippery slope has been slipping, for some time.
Mhm.
But I think it's just a reaction to cause and effect from a very strict traditional time. And that's what we're seeing now. This extreme as a reaction to the extreme we had in the past. Very rigid social roles.
No, it's super extreme, and I'd say like I feel I don't know if you'd agree with this. The government seems to want to involve itself even more and more. Do you think like there's a maybe a reason for that, or do you agree with that? That the
The
government,
government involved with what exactly?
like the trends,
Oh yeah, there's I actually follow somebody. She's an independent, she's like a small researcher journalist, and she says like a lot of these activists, a lot of these movements overlap, and they have a lot of connections into politics. So like the environmental movement with the anarchy movement, with the trans movement, like all these people are overlapping, all these political activists overlap. Now, what is the end goal? I mean, I think just dissension, discord, chaos, whatever the government does to weaken the people. But I don't think it's working in their favor. I think everything's kind of backfiring, because even the LGBTs imploding. It's all like we're all tired of it. We're all splintered off in the community, and we're all tired of it. Like there's no place for transsexuals like myself, Buck Angel, Marcus Dibb, Alex Maggio, or Blair White. We're all kind of, that's why I came up with the name Anomaly Sheep, is because that's what we are. We don't really, we kind of wander away from the herds and the flocks, and we don't fit really with any group or any herd. So, but yeah, the government, whatever their intentions are, I think it's backfiring.
yeah, no, and I see, like from your posts, I love how you highlight the insanity of how crazy it is like cults.
Mhm.
It's insane, and I just wonder, like we said, the end game. What it could it be? Like is it to dominate women's sports? Is it to groom children? Like who's and then the whole like Palestine thing. I don't know. Like, who do you think? Is there a bigger someone higher up pulling these
Well,
strings?
I would always say that there's someone out there paying for something to be pushed. The media has a way of, if you learn about propaganda, if you learn about social movements and things like that, there's always somebody paid, or there's connections in the background to someone who can afford to push the movement, afford the marketing, afford to be in people's pockets. Um, like for an example, for the uh, that's funny you said Palestine, because my buddy just said pronouns for Palestine, and it was like a tweet, but
Uh-huh.
it was like if you look on all the campuses on the news, there was like the same exact tents all over these campuses. Who's paying for these tents? Why are they all the same? Who's paying these people to be out here for this long? Because in this economy, we can admit you can't really miss work, or you need to work to survive. That's plain and simple. I just got what, 4 or 5 bags of groceries, and it was $152, including like my hygiene stuff for the month. And I take care of my stepfather and my mother. So and that's just like $152, but you can go afford to be on campus for like a week and do nothing, and then not expect the next few weeks to hit your paycheck. I don't believe that. Someone's paying for sure.
Hmm. No, I was thinking that too. Like, is it? And I thought maybe, oh, it's like these privileged kids. It's almost like with the what is it? The environmental protests and stuff like that too, where they have the time. It's like, how can you miss a day of work? Yeah, like you said, it would
Yeah,
hurt me, you know?
you know, me and my ex, she always wanted me to go visit with her family. And I was like, I can't. I can't. Someone has to stay here and work, because if both of us are gone for a week, then you know just as much as I do, though that backs up to 2 weeks of our
Mhm,
pay being messed up, which means it affects a month worth of our bills. And it just kind of snowballs if you don't stick with it. So with the trans movement and all this stuff, and I really do think it's great that you asked the question, like, is it grooming kids? um I think so. I would believe so. I mean, like, just, when we were young, you would hear the guys say, oh yeah, I hooked up with like an older woman, or I knew girls in high school who were 15, 16 with 24 year olds. And at the time, we're like, that's a little weird, but hey, do you? Because we were all young and whatever. But as adults, we're like, holy crap, that's really wrong. No adult should be talking to anybody below the age of 18. For me, my rule is, if you can't get in the bar with me, then you're too young for me, right?
mhm.
But now that I'm 30, that's even too young for me. 21 is way too young for me, because there's no common, you know,
Even that, yeah, you can't relate.
I can't relate to you. I've gone through my 20s.
Mhm,
But with the kids, I think it's a state grab, right? It's more of a wedge, and they're doing it through the education system. You're having all these teachers like use the kids' second name and pronouns, and not tell the parents anything. And it's like the state through education is what's causing the divide, the wedge. And then these kids go home and talk to their parents, and their parents are abusing them because they're using their birth name, the pronoun, everything that the parents know. And then the kid goes to school and tells the teacher, I'm being abused. And then boom, guess who shows up at the door? CPS, right? So you hear them in their language. These are our kids. These are our children, in a certain sense. Like, if you're looking out and making sure kids are safe, yes, I think as a society, we should make sure kids are always safe. But to say that the neighbor's kid is my kid, that's weird. That's not my kid. But I will look out for that kid in case something happens, or if I think something's suspicious, because we're neighbors. But I mean, like, to really like say like, no, that's my child, so I'm gonna have some say over that kid. No, like, they're teenagers next door. So the girls were driving super reckless. I'm talking going 65 in a 40, almost like weaving in and out of traffic. And I actually approached my neighbor and I told him what happened. That's what I mean by like looking out. Like, hey, I'm letting you know they're driving. Like, we hit the road because we left at the same time, and they're driving recklessly.
mhm.
Almost caused a couple accidents within the last couple miles. And that's what I'm saying by like looking out, like, if it happens, it happens, but that's not my kid. But still, I don't want something to happen because I didn't say anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're looking out, you're trying to better them for the sake of the community. It'd be like you said, saying, "Hey," like it's let's say it's teenage girls, right, that are driving recklessly. You'd say, "Hey," to your neighbor, "Hey, watch out because they're driving recklessly. They could get hurt or hurt someone."
Mhm.
It'd be different if you're like, "Hey, teenage girls, you know what? You should wear bikinis,"
Yeah,
and
it's like
you're looking out for yourself.
it's different approaching the teenage girls and talking versus
Mhm,
the parents. Like, I'm not going to go talk to some teenage girls. That's not my business.
mhm,
My business is with the parents. So, because who am I to go talk to minors? I'm an adult. Like,
mhm.
I'm not even gonna sit here and risk it, you know? And even like, because parents, I used to work in security, and parents would not watch their kids. I don't know what it is about my generation and their kids, but just with that, I guess, I would watch out for these kids, because where I used to work, a lot of creeps, a lot of pedos, if I can say that, would would be in these places waiting to grab up these kids. Trafficking. We both live in Texas. We know how bad it's gotten in the cities in terms of trafficking. So it's just things like that, right? But with the gender trans cult, back to that, it's really, I believe, the state trying to intervene and separate the children from the parents. Because if
Hmm.
they're telling kids this is abuse, you're gonna die, the parents are like, that's not true, and then the kid feels psychologically split and tormented, then the CPS is like, this is not a safe environment, we're going to take the kid out, and it's done. And I've read stories like that.
Well, and they're using, I don't know if it's again, if it's the government or some other higher up that's doing this, but they're using like TikTok. You said the school system,
Mhm,
YouTube, maybe even churches. I don't know if churches are doing it, but I wouldn't doubt if there's some that are allowing or
mhm.
okay with it. But
Jesuits,
yeah.
I think, are pushing it for the Catholic Church, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but I think they're trying to push for one part of the Catholic Church, more LGBT acceptance.
Mhm.
Now that right there, it's like, I would have never thought in my lifetime I would see something like that. But yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, like a virus that's
Mhm.
plaguing society right now.
And do you think, and again, this is me conspirizing, I don't know, like conspiracy theories, uh, that it'd be like with the whole depopulation thing that it's going about, or I don't know, they're just wanting to uh make men more feminine, or like like
I
what do you?
honestly, if we're getting into conspiracy theories, I mean, I've heard a lot about like the satanic Illuminati type stuff. I read in a book where this guy, he was a SRA victim, and it was something they liked. They had a very specific look for little boys and little girls. It was like the black wig. I don't know if you ever saw those pictures where it's the red shoes and it's the kids and it's like the podestas and all that stuff. Like, I went down a rabbit hole back in 2017 on all this stuff. But he said, black short hair and girly clothes and very feminine. And I think there was a video, I don't know if you saw it on X, but it was like these little boys in drag in Spain, like dressed in this provocative wear, and they looked exactly like how the guy described what they did to kids and do to kids out here. And and you had grown men sitting here recording kids and stuff like that, because it's like a thing. If we're getting into that, it's probably like more to encourage the pedophilia,
Mhm.
and I believe, because I'm a conspiracy theorist, I'm more like I'm ahead of the news by 5 or 10 years. But I believe it's something like that, to have these people, these rich and powerful people, feel more comfortable over time coming out with their sick practices, maybe because they're sick and tired of it. I don't know, but that's where people need to focus the general population and say like, hey, the children, that's enough. It doesn't matter. Children need to be protected at all times.
Yeah, no, definitely. Or at the most, their parents let them decide. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
and I feel bad for parents because 'cause they're told, like, "Do you want a dead daughter or an alive son? Or do you want a dead son or an alive daughter?" And at that point, if you know anything about, um, uh, how the brain works, when you're put in a fear mode, that critical thinking shuts down. It literally shuts down. That's why propaganda is so effective.
hmm.
So you have these parents literally being fed images of their child committing suicide because their feelings aren't validated. I mean, I was at a time where you didn't talk when the adults were talking. Your feelings didn't. Your feelings matter, but you need to really think about what you're doing right now. It like I was a kid, but I was still raised old school, right? You don't talk unless you're spoken to. You don't talk when the adults are around. You wait until they're done. You say, "Excuse me, yes ma'am, yes sir, no ma'am, no sir." And like there's no thick skin anymore,
Hmm.
right? There's no respect, no thick skin. And now it's like the kids are becoming the adults with the parents. It's like, well, and this is my way. And I'm like, I would have never thought of it, even stepping out of line with my parents growing up. Like that's just foreign to me. And so I guess I just feel bad because it's just a strange time for both parents and children right now.
Yeah, that'd be on the same line as saying, "Oh, do you want your kid to have a happy meal or be dead?" Like it's about feelings, and selling
Right.
it like that.
Feelings don't kids are going like I wanted to be a Ninja Turtle. I had the whole Leonardo mask, the swords, everything, but my parents weren't gonna turn me into a turtle. They weren't gonna put me through surgeries and I think every boy and some girls out there wanted to be Spider-Man at one point and go look around for a spider to bite them, but the parents would be like, you can't get bit by a black widow because it's gonna hurt you really bad, could even kill you.
Yeah.
So it's like these things, kids have feelings. Kids don't have concepts complete like we do. And the more abstract the concept, the deeper it is, it's understood through experience, through time, not what you saw online, because kids can sit there and absorb stuff like a sponge, but that doesn't mean they necessarily understand or comprehend the severity of it. You can tell them, yeah, this is not good for you, but they don't know why. Just like, don't touch the stove, you'll burn your hand. Well, what does burning your hand mean? And you touch the stove, it's the same stuff, but a little more extreme, a little more complex.
Yeah, absolutely. What in the whole idea of they're children, right? Their brains are still developing.
Right.
They're not allowed to buy lottery tickets. They're not allowed to vote. They're not allowed to have a bank account, maybe without permission. But they
Like,
can do these
none of that.
life changing surgeries.
I that's funny you bring that up because I did actually have a post that pissed off a lot of people. And I said, in all honesty, I think HRT should be given at the age of 21. And I said that because like tobacco is now a federally across the board, I believe 21. I'm uncertain, but I think so. Right.
Hmm.
So tobacco, we know, alters your state of mind, right? You get that nicotine high. Alcohol alters your state of mind. What do you think injecting your body with hormones is going to do to your state of mind, especially if your mind's not used to it? Like, I remember people will tell you the first year or two it's a fucking crazy one. It really feels like puberty all over again because it's like I'm feeling all these emotions. I don't understand what's going on with me. I'm having these outbursts. I'm having these ups and these downs, and you know but it's a very normal experience, especially when you're on a hormone or on a mind altering substance that you've never had before. The first time you drink, you get that first shot hits you harder than any other shot,
Hmm.
or when you smoke cannabis for the first time, or it's the same thing. So, and I believe for the military too, I served my country. 18's too young. At 19, I was watching over 20 something $1 million worth of equipment at 19, So it's just insane the amount of responsibility they put in immature minds. Just because you program us, break us down in boot camp doesn't mean we're mature. It just means when the shit hits the fan, we can react accordingly. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything. It's a program, and that's, I think, what's happening to these kids too. They're being programmed, they're being indoctrinated through elementary school, through middle school, through high school. And then they get into college. And speaking of, I'm going back to college and I'm like, I got to deal with all of that nonsense, but we were all there at one point. But still, it's just, you're seeing this program play out.
No, and then another theory I wanted to throw at you, and you may think whatever about it, but the government pushing this because it's good for their pockets, like for the doctors, Would you consider that?
Oh yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
without a doubt. We know pharma is in the pockets of these politicians. We know this. We know this. We know there's lobbying. We know that there's like two or three lobbyists for every one politician, and depending on what area, like like pharmacy or the oil fields, I think they have like 7 or 8 or something. Don't quote me on that, but it's a lot per one politician. So like what they vote for and what they stand for is typically what they're being paid for.
Hmm.
And so for me, everything I get my medication free. I get it all through the VA, everything like that. Um, but for other people, let's just do the math. 100, let's say it's $100,000 to $150,000 per person. Chemicals, the testosterone or estrogen, the surgeries. The surgeries are expensive, especially when you go in for revisions and do all this stuff. It adds up. So if you have a higher population and more people identifying, you're seeing like it's over $1 billion+ just,
Yeah.
and it's getting bigger, it's growing. And then you have influencers, Twitch streamers, all these people saying, yeah, this is great, this is excellent, like that Finster guy. I don't know if you know who he is. He's got almost 1 million followers on Instagram. I think like 700,000 on Twitch, but he takes hormones because he does, I believe, sissy porn. I don't
Okay.
know. And so he takes it to achieve a certain look, not because he actually has dysphoria, but over time he started to, according to one of my sources, he started to just take more because that's what his followers liked. And so he was making money off of all this.
Hmm.
And so there's that porn too. That's a big influence on a lot of these men coming out saying, "Well, we're trans, but I like my dick," or "We're trans, but I like women only, and therefore I'm a lesbian," or they have this. It's like this streamline that they go down, and so we go from porn riddled men, we go from people doing it just for the hell of it, cosmetic purposes. Even young girls take testosterone to stop their period. Instead of saying, "Hey, this is a normal function. This is just your body's way of expelling stuff." No, they're told like it's the worst thing in the world. Well, yeah, in the moment it's the worst thing, but we understand it's a biological function that's a necessity for us.
Yeah.
And these people are they're just being told, like it's just so weird, because this stuff is not something you should sit here and microdose on or play with or try out. If I took too much testosterone and I just decided to double my dose and stick my leg, that hormone's going to stay in my body until it wears out, until it goes away, and the damage that it could cause my body, I don't know. So it's not something you should play with or just take for the hell of it because you want to. It's something serious. It's something that can literally alter your life.
Hmm.
And it's just, I don't know what's going on anymore. I've been gone for 4 years. So until just this year.
Oh, it must have been a culture shock.
Yeah,
Just all-
I came back last year in June and I was like, this is too much. And I like logged out. And then my beautiful girlfriend and my buddy, they were like, you need to speak out. This is getting out of hand. You have the turfs and you have the trans cult, and it's like the two camps are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I come out and everybody's like, I have supporters, I have haters. I could care less about the haters, but at the end of the day, it's just like me me doing what I'm doing has an incredible effect on saving young adults. I've had one that said, you've literally convinced me not to get bottom surgery because I now really understand the severity of it. And it's just like insane, you know like that this is going on, and that they need to hear it from the mouth of a transsexual, not a turf, not somebody who's in the trans cult, none of that. They actually need to hear it from somebody who's experiencing it.
Mhm.
And so I think that's where um, a lot of people, I think that's where a lot of people really just don't like transsexuals like Buck Angel. Everybody knows Buck's past. Everyone, if you've come across his past, you know his past. But he's done more to help parents and kids not go down that path than all of the turf movement. Literally, Blair White, too. They've done more. Those two alone have done more than the entire movement itself, because no one's going to go and listen. Let's say I'm not a car mechanic, but I tell you what's wrong with your car, but you know I'm not a car mechanic, so are you going to trust what I'm going to say?
No, of
No,
course
you're
not.
not. You're not. Or if I was an electrician, or if I was doing something that wasn't in my experience, but I'm talking like I have experience, I'm talking like I know.
Hmm.
That doesn't make sense. Why would someone listen to you? And it's the same thing here. Like, you have to hear it from the horse's mouth.
No, yeah, definitely. Like you're the one who could actually empathize because you've had those thoughts or you've had those ideas, and you're like, no, this is the better option, and I'm happier that I didn't, or I'm happier for it, and I can share my experience.
Right, right.
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you see any saving grace for like the LBGTQ blah 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 space, or do you think it's gonna get worse like that
I
sort
think
of?
the pendulum swinging back after a decade of dealing with this nonsense. We're seeing, the child affirmations, the child gender affirmation stuff ending in a vast majority of states. If President Trump comes in, he said he would federally shut that all down. And I agree, at the federal level, like, no kids should be exposed to this stuff. None of this should be taught. The saving grace is, with the community. It's hard because, like, it reminds me. I'm not trying to compare the community to OnlyFans, but when OnlyFans came out, and then all these people were creating the content, and then I don't know if you remember, they were trying to reshift or change the direction of their platform, but it was just too far under a certain image that it's just not savable. It's not redeemable. And I
Mhm,
think that's
no.
the same for the LGBT community. I mean, at this point, it's really, we went from a community now to, we have to be individuals. We have to accept that what it once was is no longer there. And that's fine. Things change, but to say, I don't see any saving grace, especially anytime soon. But people do know that the community is against it. A lot of us are against this small majority.
Yeah, it's like the almost like the Black Lives Matter type thing where it's mostly white people saying, "Oh, you should care." Where I'm guessing in the LBGTQ or the trans community, it's everyone else saying you should offend them, but the trans, I'm sure the real people, the real trans, like don't aren't offended. You know what I mean?
No, I'm
Seems
not
to be.
offended by anything anyone says. Like, you could go to my page and people will sit there and say the worst things to me. I'm like, peace to you, blessings to you, because, like, you need it. I'm over here chilling, and you're getting your panties in a bunch because of something I said. How old are you? And that's why I'm very peaceful and very calm online. That's why I interact with people peacefully, because there's no need for enemies. There's no need to make people more angry. What does that do? It does nothing. It's nothing productive. Not, and I'm a human. I get angry. I get bothered sometimes. But the great thing about being online is you can put your phone down. You can take it and go outside. You can get some sunshine, drink some water, relax, go look at the bees, pollinate, go do something that just keeps you in the present, not in this phone, arguing with the stranger who's probably trying to get your goat. But again, I think, um, just a peaceful discord. We need that. We need to be more understanding of each other. And that's why I have my account. You wrote me, you sent me a message, and I was open. I was open to talking to you. I'm always open to talking to people, because I do believe conversations should be private. You can ask me anything and I'll be happy to answer. That's just how I am, but I'm not going to do it publicly either. X is so confusing, where you answer one and then you get another response, and then it's in a different thread. And
Yeah, yeah.
that's why I don't do debates or conversations but my inbox is always open to anybody willing to ask questions.
No, I appreciate it. And lastly, you know what? I know we talked over through the conversation about more or less the advice you'd give to someone in the same situation. So I just to summarize, like, what advice would you give to someone who believes like they aren't comfortable in their own body and they feel alone? They feel like they don't belong in the community they're in. I know that's a little old school now, but I'm sure there's still people out there who like obviously feel that way.
Well, there's a difference between being lonely and alone, right?
Mhm,
And if you feel lonely, then reach out. That's why I'm here. You can reach out, you can have a conversation with me. But I was in your shoes, and you learn through those difficult times what you're made of, the resistance, the persistence, the in-depth analysis of yourself. Who am I? What am I? Why am I feeling this way? Let's look back. Let's go to therapy if we can afford therapy. If not, again, you can always reach out to people like myself who are willing to talk to you. Am I a therapist? Absolutely not. But I can shed some wisdom to you. But transition is not going anywhere. These people think, oh, if I don't hurry up and act, I'm not going to get my hormones right now. That's not true. At the rate it's going with the hormones handing out like candy, you probably would be able to get it just like an over the counter thing in the next 10, 15, 20 years if it continues down this path. But
mhm,
it's going to be there. What's not going to be there is, you know, who you could have been, what you could have been if you just took your time, took a minute, got the help you needed, and really think this out. I always say it, and I'll say it again. Transition is a marathon. It is the rest of your life. It is a lifelong thing. It is not a sprint. It is not something you can just rush to happen. It's not something that just will happen overnight. This didn't happen overnight. This is several years. The chin hair is finally like, the Hispanic genetics, we get the thin, hair and everything like that. This is it took 7 years to get here, 6 or 7 years. It's not for some, yeah, but that's if like they're taking as much as a man like you should be taking, and they're hurting their bodies doing that. That's why a lot of them stop because they start showing health problems. Yeah, because you're abusing your body with a steroid that you're not even allowing to process in your body. But to the individuals that are alone or you feel some kind of way, just reach out. Just reach out. Someone has gone through exactly what you've been through. And, you know, better to ask questions. You're not going to be a fool for asking questions. You are going to be a fool because you didn't ask. So,
mm. No, wonderful. And again, I thank you for your time today. Thank you for your service both in the military and the through the what you do on X, trying to bring some sort of sense to this chaos at at the moment.
yeah, it is chaos, but common sense is not so common.
Oh, of course not, and that's why I appreciate what you're doing. And yeah, people can find you at Anomaly Sheep on X or
Mhm.
Twitter, whatever it's called, whatever it's
I don't know
transitioning
what it's
to.
called anymore. Thank
But
you for
yeah,
having me on. Thank you. Peace and blessings, my friend. Thank you so much.
no, thank you so much, and yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Everyone, take care. Bye.